All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have an awesome guest lined up for this week's Front Nine segment. We're excited. Three-time LPGA Tour winner, three-time Solheim Cup Team USA member, and the newest member, a great personality on PGA Tour Live. We've all enjoyed it a ton. Now on the tee, welcome to the show, Christina Kim.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you? How's your schedule? A little busy, I assume.
Yeah, I woke up super early this morning, made it back down to Orlando, caught a workout with my trainer, been vegging out since I try to do my best to take Mondays off. And I've got like 3 appearances today, and your appearance number 2, and you were the one that I was most concerned about making sure that I caught.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. Now, typically how this works is my partner Chad and I will sort of rapid fire questions. Today, unfortunately for you, you just got me, but I'm going to do the best I can. He sent me over some questions, and we'll try to get you out of here in a timely manner. But we're excited to kind of ask you a few things and hear your response.
Yeah, come at me, bro.
All right. So let's start here. The LPGA Tour is set to resume here in a few weeks. Your plan is to get back out there and start playing, correct?
Yes, I have. As soon as the lockdown started, I just said I'm going to pretend like I'm going to have one guy in my ear, which is our commissioner, Mike Wan, saying, I messed up. We're actually starting next week. And then on the other side of my head, I had our golf course director of golf saying, I messed up. We're closing tomorrow. So I was just really using these last few months to just pretend like it was a day on the golf course. And yeah, we're starting up, last week of July, and I cannot wait to get back out to play.
Well, I want to talk to you about a new exciting venture that you've been on. I found your appearances on PGA Tour Live to be extremely energetic and insightful. Tell me a little bit about that experience and where does it take place? What do your days look like? Give us a little behind the scenes on that.
Well, it was pretty much all 4 days I was up at or around 4 o'clock, went down to the local gym, or not the local, the hotel gym, worked out, made my way over to the studio, and it was anywhere from starting at like 7:15 with like an hour's worth of like pre stuff, all the way until, the end of play, which would be about 6:30, maybe a little bit later than that. And you'd be on for 2 hours, you'd be off for an hour, on for two, off for one. So it was a lot of, it wasn't a lot of work, to be quite honest, except for that
Yeah.
damn telestrator. I'm not an artist, so I wasn't a big fan of that. It wasn't a crazy ton of work. All the work was being done behind the scenes by everybody else. I just talked.
So you're up in Ponte Vedra. So you're basically standing in front of a monitor watching it just like we would watch it. And then are you in a booth with someone or how does that work?
Yes, so we are at, because of everything going on with COVID right now, they're not wanting to send too many people on site and things like that, which is completely understandable. So we're at the PGA Tour Entertainment office. We have our own studio. We've got a booth. I've got another commentator, an actual analyst with me, that's basically holding my hand and stroking my hair and telling me I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And so we've got monitors in front of us. We have our computers in front of us. We can scan any number of statistics, follow any group, any hole. We have an idea of basically everything that's going on except for the words that are being spoken. And that's where the monitor comes in, which is really, really cool.
Very cool. Well, I'll be honest, you seem to be kind of a natural at it. Did they put you through any sort of training or did they just kind of throw you into the fire?
No, well, so a few weeks back I played, or not played, excuse me, such a golfer. I did the commentary for the first 2 days over at the RBC
The
Heritage.
heritage, right.
Yes. And so that was that was me dipping my toes into the water. And then, a few weeks back, Greg Hoppy, who is running the whole shindig, he contacted me and said, hey, how would you like to do all 4 days? And I was like, yeah.
Right.
And so I pretty much just went from like getting my feet wet into diving down into, into the deep end. And, everyone is just the energy is amazing there. They're very nurturing. They're great at, setting you up for what it is that you're going to be seeing next, so that you can prepare for things. Even that flyover with the telestrator, they actually set me up a lot. I just like froze every time I saw it. And, it was awesome. I mean, everyone was so professional and so kind at the same time. I just felt like I was sitting there. I basically did the same thing I would do if I was watching the PGA Tour on my own TV, this time I just didn't have my hand down my pants, basically, sitting there eating
Right.
a bunch of snacks.
Well, that's part of what I thought was so enjoyable about it is you kind of brought a different perspective. One of the things you talked about some of the lies that a player had. You brought us a little bit inside the rules book. We'll get to a little bit of that later. But here's the one thing that I've gotten some people DM me about, a little critique from some of your fellow commentators. They got to get this thing down with the cut line. Uh, it seems every week they kind of bury guys for missing the cut and then they end up making the cut or probabilities. Is there like a stat guy in the booth that is giving you running probabilities on the cut line, or how, like, is there a person there, a statistics guy with you guys in the booth?
There is not. For me personally, I just go based off of my own experience. And I said, the vast majority of the time, you take the cut line, you multiply it by 2, and you take 1 off. That's what it tends to be.
Right.
How the hell am I supposed to know that, there are going to be a bunch of guys that drop a few shots the last few holes? I only go based off of my experiences. So have I been wrong about cuts on the LPGA Tour? Yeah. There
Right.
is no perfect formula when it comes to, you have to look at things like strength of field. You have to look at, the difference in weather from the morning of the first round to the afternoon of the second, and then everything in between. Because, I had said during the telecast, a lot of times if you go late early, you're going to oftentimes have the most consistent golf course, as opposed to having it, be the softest first thing in the morning on Thursday, and then having it be firmer Friday afternoon than you would Thursday afternoon. So, and you have to look at who's playing in those times. You have to
Sure.
think, are these the kind of players that actually play better when they go early, late, or late, early? Like there's any number of things that you have to think about. And then
Right.
on top of that, you have to add in the human spirit, and Lord only knows that messes everything up.
Right. I know. Totally. I'm just giving you crap. They kind of,
Oh no, it's
your
all
partner
good.
there kind of buried Tiger Woods for missing his first cut at Memorial. Then he ended up making it. Well, but
That
let's
was
shift
him.
gears. I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you, I'm saying these guys, you got to get them on board, but let's shift gears to Minnesota. I want to talk to you. You have a ton of experience. The event this week is the 3M Open, but they were also supposed to host the Ryder Cup here shortly. You have a ton of experience in the Solheim Cup. Did they make the right move in canceling this event since there could be no fans?
I think they made the right decision for a myriad of reasons. First and foremost, we are not out of COVID yet.
Right.
We are not we're not post pandemic. We're in the middle of the pandemic. We are post first lockdown. And so everyone's health and safety should be for the first priority. Two, they made the right decision because you can't have a team event like that without fans.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not, if you've ever been to a Ryder Cup, if you've ever been to a Solheim Cup, a President's Cup, Walker Cup, Curtis Cup, even your freaking state, team, north, south,
Yeah.
whatever it is, there's something that, there's a different energy that is brought in. So when, instead of having a 12-man team and then the captains and vice captains, the crowds themselves can become truly a member of that team, depending on who it is that you're rooting for. So I think that it would take away so much from the overall experience. And it's lonely enough when you're one of 24 players on a golf course, and
Yeah.
then it's legitimately just one of 24 people on a golf course.
Right.
There's so many things that, it sucks. There's no question of that. I just think that is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to last week for a minute. I want to talk to you about John Rahm on 16. So
Mhm.
I guess my take on it, not knowing the rules book too much, is that I didn't think he should have been penalized. I know there's kind of been some debates in there. I think you think that they made the right call there, and the tour obviously did penalize him on that. What was your opinion on the entire, how things unfolded?
Well, so I had finished my coverage because I was only covering up until about 6 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Might have been just before that. And so I had gone back to the hotel, and I was getting, messages on Twitter. I was getting text
Yeah.
messages, and I was just like, what?
What happened?
Homeboy had like, he was, he started, he was like, at one point he was 8 ahead of everyone else. And I'm like,
Yes.
there's no, what happened? And so I went and I said, I don't know what happened. Can someone tell me? I got a video tweeted at me, and by definition of the rules, it's not, they always talk about intention. There's no, if you have intention of improving your
Right.
lie, if you have intention of doing this, if you have intention of gaining an unfair advantage, blah, 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 blah. This is not one of those situations. It's sort of like, say, in football, let's say you
Yep.
got Aaron Rodgers throwing a Hail Mary at you, and it's, you know, just a little bit outside of your reach. And so you catch the football, and, you've got, an eighth of an inch of your shoe over the line.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a catch by definition of the rules?
No.
Or it's not a catch. And so the thing is, he didn't intend to make any adjustments to his lie. He didn't intend for the ball to move. It's just, when you've got hair, again, it's like the number of guys I've seen that have decided they're going to grow a man bun because they couldn't get their hair cut for the first couple months of quarantine. When you got rough that's grown out, has not been cut since I think it was maybe the Sunday or Monday of that week.
Right.
It's getting longer. It's unpredictable, and that's part of the reason why the course was playing so difficult to begin with. And he, if the ball is here, you set up to the ball to try and, get your body in the right positions, this and that. And he set his club behind the ball on the grass, and the ball moved, fractionally.
Right.
Fractionally. He didn't intend to do it. It's just what happened. And that's what the rules, that's just really all that took place. Like, thankfully, at the end of the day, it didn't make any sort of it didn't really matter in terms of
Didn't
the overall
change the
outcome.
Right.
That being said, I'd be curious to know, and I'm sure there is a parallel universe somewhere off in the ether where he was notified right when it did happen, because they didn't notify him until after the round. So if they had told him, when they were able to analyze it, and they told him before he had finished, it'd be very curious to know how, puckered up he would be feeling coming down the 18th hole, with knowing that 2 less shots were going to be buffering him and Ryan Palmer.
100%. And I honestly think in his post-round interviews, he handled it very well. But at the same token, I'm wondering if he would have handled it so well if that had, if he had gone from first to third in that tournament. It's just, for me, I guess is it something you think that is able to be enforced effectively and consistently for all players in the field? Or did it just come down to the fact that, there's an HD camera behind his shot where, 5 or 6 guys came through before that who didn't have the camera right behind their ball?
Well, it is tough to say, because we are in, a golf course where we're walking, at 8, 9, 10 miles sometimes. So you have a huge expanse of land, and you're not going to have a camera on every single person at every single time. It's not like, say, in a baseball field or a, football field or basketball court where you have a finite amount of space, and this is the only place where you're allowed to play. So you can have multiple cameras, and you're able to basically see everything going on. At the same time, that is part of the price of having those cameras on you, is because you are the best players in the world. Now Rahm is the best player in the world.
Right.
And with that comes the added responsibility. It's golf is one of the most amazing sports that parallels life. You can do everything right. You bomb a drive, you end up in a divot. You sit there, you hit a perfect shot, and then a gust of wind comes, your ball falls in the water. You hit a perfect putt, gust blows the ball away. Like, anything can happen. Or you can sit there and you can skull your approach shot. It'll hit a sprinkler head, and then it'll land and go in the hole. Like, all kinds of crap happens. So, there is a price to be paid because of the, they're playing for a ton of money. Realistically, and I had mentioned it on my Twitter feed, when I was discussing the whole matter, when I get near a lie that I'm not comfortable with, I don't put my club behind the ball. I hover it above the ground. Like, because they're like, and thankfully no one ever said the C word regarding, the situation that took place on 16, because clearly there was no intention of John trying to cheat by any means.
Of course.
Obviously everyone knows his character. Everyone knows what he's all about. It has nothing to do with that. That being said, that C word in golf is a hell of a lot worse than the normal C word that people try not to say in regular life. And so, there are very few things in the world that matter more to a golfer than their integrity and their honor. And because of that, by the nature of the game, we're supposed to self-police ourselves. There was no intention for any sort of an advantage there.
Right.
And so it was an honest mistake. It was an infraction of the rule. It was nothing intentional. It was nothing malicious. It was simply stated, it was a mistake that inadvertently happened. And the rules are very simple. If there's an infraction, there's an infraction is an infraction.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It doesn't mean you're a bad person because it was an infraction of the rule. If you tried to cheat, you're a son of a bitch.
Yep.
If it was not intentional, it just happened. And then there you go. We learn from it. We move on.
Well, you spoke a lot about integrity and honor, and I know that's very important to you in the game. So I want to kind of shift gears and ask you a little bit about Bryson, some of the antics on the 15th hole, antics, so to speak. But does that kind of stuff, does it bother you to kind of watch that and arguing with rules officials? And, I think he even called out Phil at one point. Does that kind of stuff irk you a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. Enough said.
Yeah. No, I mean, my thing is, and it goes back a few weeks before when,
right.
When Bryson won with the camera guy that was, one, only doing his job, and two, didn't even catch whatever it was that took place.
They didn't show it on TV, right?
No, they didn't show it. There was no footage of it whatsoever because he was doing his job, which was keeping his eye on the ball. And so by the time he had panned back, whatever had happened already took place. And so, when Bryson sat there and said, hey, you know what, we need our image to be protected. The camera guys need to protect us. We do this, we do that. We're playing for a lot of money. There are a lot of money endorsements, things like that. They need to help us protect our image. And I'm like, bro, you're the first person that needs to be concerned about protecting your image. And in order to do that, don't act a fool. It's very simple, and obviously, it is sports. It is high intensity. It is stressful. So yeah, obviously there are ways in which you can, you want to vent, go ahead and vent. I have no problem with venting. That being said, don't take it out on someone else. If I act a fool, I know I act a fool. Half the time, if I miss a green, I bring my club back to my caddy and say, I'm sorry. I don't sit there and say, what was that? What kind of number was that? Or this or that, I own up to what it is that I do because I act a fool all the time. Yeah. And so, what took place on 15, it was just like, it was hard to watch. I mean, it broke my heart watching it. I mean, I was, upset with what happened in regards to the ruling for a number of reasons, but even before we got to that point. When he saw that his ball was in the water, he was taking his drop. I'm like, okay, you think about it. You hit number 1 in the water, you're dropping 2, chip out 3, give yourself a number that you feel comfortable with, hit it to, 8 to 6 to 12 feet, something like that. Make the putt. You made 5. I know you wanted to make 3.
And he's in the tournament at that point.
And exactly. And then you can go, boom, birdie 16, boom, birdie 17, par 18 if you want, birdie it if you want. You're
minus
okay,
8 won it. Yeah.
Exactly. Nowhere near out of it. And that is where youth comes from. And I was talking to, I think there's a Twitter account like Bryson DeChambeau Tracker or something like that. We were kind of talking about it. And I was like, you need to tell your son, even though he's called Mr. Scientist, he needs to go back to school and take a stats class on probability. 10 was nowhere in anybody's mind,
It was an implosion.
Yeah. And then on top of that, and obviously he was very upset with the fact that his ball, he hit 2 identical shots that ended up on that fence. And then, he basically was like, instead of just saying like, yeah, I messed up. Okay. What do I do now?
He knew the rules, right? He knew the rules.
No, that was the thing because because you have these 2 thick posts and then you have the skinny metal poles in between. I think he must have thought that the outside edge of the post, as in like the side that is not closest to the golf course, was the boundary, or the actual posts between the thick poles. And that's just not the case. That's not the rule. The rule is very simply, and on top of that, it does change from week to week. And so you need to, again, this is something I always stress, is know your rules. It's like if you got an office job, like let's say we're a clerk at a law firm. They give you, HR gives you a binder with, no personal emails sent from your business account. Don't stick your finger in anybody's butt. things like that. And if you break these rules, you're subject to, reprimanding, you're subject to being fired, whatever else. The reality is, yes, we've been doing this same thing since we were kids. This is our office. And so in order to do that, the rules of golf are the binder that HR in essence have sent to us. And the rules of golf are there to help us. Rules officials are not there to say, ooh, who's lurking that I can penalize. No,
Yeah.
they're there to uphold the rules of golf, and they will help you as much as they can. And so that kind of hit me on a little bit of a personal level, because I know how hard all these rules officials work.
Totally.
That being said, he's very young, so give
Right.
him some time. Hopefully he'll cool off.
Mature, yeah. So I want to kind of now shift gears to the future. That's enough about the past. I want to talk about the 3M Open a little bit. So I'm curious your take on sort of motivation going into an event like this for some of the top players who, you're not quite nearly the same strength of field as you were last week. Are they sort of seeing that as an opportunity and circle that on their calendar? Let me get this win. Let me get my FedEx Cup points. Or is this more an event where you may look at someone, trying to hold on to and secure their tour card, circling this event and saying, look, I got a chance this week. This is a very important event for me. From a motivation standpoint, how do you see things playing out?
Well, first and foremost, the strange thing about this year is no one is going to lose their card this year, in essence.
Okay.
Everyone, because this is such a strange year, whatever number you started on this year, you're going to keep your card for next year, as far as I can recall. So because the regular season has been cut down so short, you've only got a few events before the FedEx Cup playoffs start. And so you're going to have, whereas this tournament may not, on a regular year have as strong a field, you're not necessarily going to have, you've got a lot of guys with a lot of incentive, because
Right.
there's a ton of money available in the playoffs. It's funny money, especially when obviously these guys are making millions of dollars anyway.
Yeah.
Even that aside, you're basically playing for funny money at this point, once you get into the playoffs. So, you've got a guy like Brooks who, he has, is he playing the 3M? I didn't actually look
Yeah,
at the field. I'm
he is
sure he
playing,
is.
yeah. And he's currently
Yeah.
out of the FedEx Cup playoffs, actually,
Yes,
too.
correct. He's like, 152 or something like that in the FedEx playoff. And so he has to play well in order to get his way into the FedEx. And then he's got the WGC coming up. And then he's going for his three-peat for the PJ Championship. So there's a lot of things at stake for him. So I would say that, he is going to be coming in, fist swinging, or whatever that freaking term is. Like, he's coming in, fully committed. You're going to also have guys that have the mindset of, this isn't necessarily as strong a field as it could be. So it could basically be a cash grab.
Yeah.
Although, truth be told, almost anybody can win any given week.
Well, I was going to ask you about one of my favorite players making his return this week in Tommy Fleetwood. I'm excited to see Tommy back. How important are tournament reps week to week? Like, we saw Tiger, I guess you could say he struggled a little bit, although he played pretty well in spots. But how much different is tournament golf than just going out and sort of playing on the weekends with your friends and shooting a 64?
Well, if I'm being perfectly honest, it all depends on the individual. Like, if you can sit there and say, at the end of the day, golf is just golf, and you're able to say, I'm choosing to focus on this. I'm going to focus on this swing. I'm going to focus on this shot. Then golf is just golf. If you're going to go in there saying, I have to move up X number of spots, like, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage. You're giving yourself added pressure. And so it just kind of depends, and the thing with Tommy is, he's coming back from, the lockdown in the UK, which has been a lot stricter than it had been for, the vast majority of, your followers here within the US. There are some people obviously in the UK that follow along that can have, they're like, I know exactly what he's been going through. So it is kind of hard to say. I mean, I truly don't know. It all depends on what kind of guy Tommy is. And I don't know Tommy well enough to be able to make that kind of a decision as to whether or not he's going to come out guns a-blazing or not. I would expect, what I do know of him and his personality, that he's going to be giving it his all. And his swing is so rock solid that he may have just looked like he was like cryogenically frozen for a couple of weeks and then just steps out and just boom, 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 boom.
Right. All right. So I got some quick hitters for you here, and then we'll kind of get you out of here because I know you got things to do. So just to give you a little perspective, we are a golf we try to predict what's going to happen. We're a gambling pod. We do fantasy golf, that kind of stuff. We dive a lot, probably too much, into some of the metrics and stats and stuff like that. How important are putting surfaces, the type of grass? Because we look into that a lot this week. Does it make a difference to a player, whether it's bent or Bermuda or Poa grass? Tell me about a player's perspective on the putting surfaces.
I would say first and foremost, it depends on if you're coming back from a tournament or if you're coming from home, like how different the grass is from the grass you were just putting on, just practicing on. Week in, week out, the guys generally have the greens rolling at around 12, sometimes 13 on the stem. So they're very, very consistent. Just like the sand in the bunkers, they're no longer hazards. It's the same sand every single week that they basically almost have, they have a contract with a company that comes in 2 months in advance, puts all the sand into the bunkers. And that's one reason why they're as good as they are at the bunkers, other than the fact they have perfect technique. So it just kind of depends, and I would also take a look at the player themselves and say, where did they grow up? If they grew up down in the South, they're more accustomed to Bermuda grass.
Right.
If they're, along the coastline or somewhere up in the Northeast, it's going to be bent or Poana. So, for me personally, as long as there's grass on the green, I don't really care.
Got it.
That being said, if you didn't grow up if you grew up on like bent, you're going to have a more difficult time oftentimes dealing with the grain with Bermuda.
Okay. So Chad has this thing where he has this debate in his head, and he likes to ask people, course history or recent form, which sort of side are you on there? Basically meaning, would you rather be playing well in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to a tournament, or have played really well at this course and tournament the 2 or 3 years prior? So you're familiar with the course, or you're coming in really hot. What's more important?
I would say current form is more important to me. Personally,
Right.
I think coming into a tournament, coming into form, that's why so many of these guys are having trouble, like Brooks and Tiger right now, and even Rory, like he was like top 5 everything, all black, all everything, coming in before the lockdown. And now, he's been playing well. He just hasn't been capitalizing and winning, and this is the time of year where guys are escalating to peak at the majors and at the WGC. So there is some methodology to that.
So, all right, pick one. This is for you personally. Would you rather have a great ball striking week or a great putting week?
I would say a great ball striking week, because I don't really care if you're putting for par every hole. It doesn't mean shit. So you have to give yourself opportunities to have birdies. And, statistically, if you keep giving yourself 12 footers, a few are going to drop.
Right. Now, do they need to? So Jack suggested this on the broadcast. He said he's been lobbying with the USGA for 40 years about this. Do they need to roll the ball back a little bit for these guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Very simple. You don't have great drivers of the ball the way that you used to. You were, for the most part, either long or straight. It was very, very rare you could be both.
Right. Just curious, how many hours a week would you say a professional golfer spends practicing or on the range?
I would say minimum 25 hours, I would say, because even if you're just getting in a few putting drills before you play, and then you go and you hit balls for half an hour. You go out there, you play. If you're the kind of golfer that likes to play golf every day, then boom, that's 5 hours in the day. And if you're playing at least 5 days a week, that's very, very conservative. I would say, like for me, I would say it's probably closer to like 60 hours a week. I'm a golf nerd. I have the best job in the world. So, if you're able to love what you do and you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
What we try to do every week is sort of analyze the odds boards and what are a player's chances to win. Do players pay attention to that at all? Do they have any idea if they're 20 to 1 or 50 to 1 or 100 to 1, or are they just going to play their game?
I think some are. And then really quick, going back to the previous question about if you want to be coming into form versus coming to a course you've played well in the past.
Yeah.
If you've played well at a course in the past, if you're not playing well, that could cause you to lose your mind even faster because you should be playing. I've never not birdied this hole in the last
Yeah.
3 years. What the hell am I doing? So
Mm-hmm.
on a psychological level, I still think coming into form presently and more focused on what you have done more recently is far more important. I personally don't. Truth be told, I'm going to have a shit ton of zeros behind, whatever digit they go with in terms of my odds. So I don't
Come
really
on.
care. And, I don't care. It's all good. And secondly, I don't know if, betting in golf is still so new and so young that I know there are some players that are aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just for me personally, it's not something that I really pay attention to.
Got it. So who's the nicest guy on tour that you want to, that you just, if you had a choice to hang out at the pool for a day with someone, who you picking?
I would have to go with, this is going to be my hanging out at the pool foursome. So
All
I
right.
would have to go with Shane Lowry because he just looks like he would be such a laugh. And he truly is just such a great guy. Max Homa because he's from Cali, as am I. And he's just like, like the little brother that you would, wake up having pissed your pants because he stuck your hand in a bowl of warm water. And then Billy Horschel because he's so smart, he's so quick-minded, and I would have the most unbelievable conversations in the world with him. So if
What
you can
about,
find one that does them all.
yeah. So what about your pick a foursome to go to a party with? If you got a big banger at somebody's house and a party that they're hosting, who's going to be the life of the party and the most fun?
Ooh, I would say, we all saw how Shane celebrated after he won the Open
Oh, it
Championship
looked
last week.
amazing,
Like,
right?
yeah, that he's going to be there and he's the one that's going to bring the house down. Um, I I don't know. I don't know. I would want to bring someone that you would not necessarily expect to be the life of the party and just end up wearing, just his boxers and his shirt caught on fire and, shit like that. I'd like to think that there are a few guys out there.
Awesome. Last question. I know you're not in the industry of picking players, but I'm going to give you sort of the four guys at the top of the week this week, and just tell me who you think is going to win, in your opinion. So it's Brooks, DJ, Tommy, Tony Finau. Who would you pick to win?
I would say I would pick between Tommy and Tony. The only thing that Tony's got going against him right now is the fact that he had such a rough weekend.
Yeah.
He has been trending upward really, really well though. And I feel like he's the kind of guy that would be, because he loves being at Muirfield Village. The thing with Tony is that, he had played so solidly and he played very simplistically. And then obviously he struggled over the weekend. He loves it over there at Muirfield Village. I still just think that he would have the mindset of he can heave a sigh of relief and be like, oh, okay, I know I'm playing great. I know I'm doing all the right things. I can take what took place at the end of the week last week and get that out of my mind. Let's frickin' go.
Right.
That is the kind of guy that I think Tony is. And Tommy, he's a little bit of a wild card because again, like, I don't know if he's the kind of guy that would think, oh man, I haven't touched a club in this long. He is hungry and he's been starved of competitive golf for so long that I think he is just, there's no reason in my mind whatsoever that he wouldn't just come guns a-blazing and just light up DPC over there.
Thank you so much for joining us. You've done an amazing job. We will all continue to follow along at the Christina Kim on Twitter. Thank you so much again, Christina. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Tell Chad he sucks.
All right, I will.